Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of all the decisions, I didn't either. He knew how to manipulate we even start talking about parking, but he would go goo-goo eyes at him and give him whatever he wanted. Going to call this workshop session to order. This is the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency, and it's 5 p.m. on March 13th. We've got a workshop scheduled to discuss the current and projected urban renewal projects. And who's going to be leading our discussion this evening? Ray Lynn. Great, thank you. Yes. For the record, we will welcome Mr. Adam Garcia to the team. We're expecting Mr. Zach Brooks to join us soon, and there's a couple of other members of the commission that will be here shortly. Thank you, Ray Lynn. Yeah, the worldwide audience.
So, for the record, I'm Ray Lynn North. I am the treasurer for the Urban Renewal Agency. I also am the finance director for City of Caldwell. And I'm brand new. I've been here 2 months.
Well, welcome, and thanks for all your work.
Yeah. So, kind of just to go over what I plan to talk about. Obviously, I have Rochelle, who's coming, and then Rob as my backups, and then also Stephen and Ophelia if we have any other questions, because I do not have the history on this. But I figured I'd talk about the 2023 budget, the December closeout of the East Urban Renewal area, the projects, and then the project budgets. So for the 2023 budget, it was approved on August 8th. Of 2022 through resolution. We approved a total of just over or just under $19 million, and with increment revenue of $10,941,176. That increment revenue was both for the East Urban Renewal area and the North Urban Renewal area. So if you go on the City of Caldwell website, under Urban Renewal, there is a link that does show the full published 2023 document. Can you click on that for me, Rob? If it allows you to click on it. There we go. So if you will scroll down, so this is the resolution. Keep going. And this is kind of just going a comparison of the expenditures from year to year. Keep going. But this is really the budget from year to year. So some of the things that I wanted to point out here. So, and we're going to look at that very right-hand column because that is the 2023 budget. So you can see the middle column, that is the 2022 budget. That's what we budgeted in 22. And then the right-hand column is the one we budgeted in 23. So for accounting and engineering services, we budget $8,000. ICREMP, which is our insurance for risk management, that's $11,177. Audit, this is a contract that we have with Eide Bailey. Currently, $14,000. We have legal at $117,660. That's what was in the budget. As you can see, it was a significant increase from year to year. That's renewed annually, so we look at that contract every year. Go ahead and scroll down, Rob. And then these are the projects. You can see some of the projects that were approved in the budget. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what is specifically set, but these were the amounts. Part of that is the economic development support. This $216,000 goes to fund the economic development fund that also is part of Stephen and Ophelia's wages. It's not the full revenue that supports them. The city supports them as well, but that does go to support their wages and some of their operations. You can see some of the projects that were approved here in the budget. However, as you can see, some of these have morphed to what was finally approved. So when we go into what the closeout was, these were not the final amounts. So there's some certain, one thing I'll point out, you can see TVCC building of $3.5 million. That was not what was approved at all. Total amount was less than $50,000, and it was only approved for the design amounts. So big changes. This is what the budget was, but final amounts that were approved by everybody was not approved. Because even though we approve it in the budget, we also come to you guys for contracts, we come to you guys for funding different portions of the projects. This is something that Rochelle will have a breakdown on. You'll have to see the different resolutions. And so just because we plan it in the budget doesn't mean that's how we actually spend it as well. So go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint. But I just wanted to let you know that document is out there for you guys to review.
Question, Mr. Moore?
Before we get to Mr. Moore, just a clarification, Mr. Chairman. Raylan, the $3.5 million to TVCC, you said it wasn't approved, right?
That's correct. One of the things with urban renewal is that for buildings, there's a cap in state law of $1 million as well for buildings, so that was not approved at all.
Okay, so if it's not approved, why is it still up there?
So I was not part of making that budget, so I don't, but that's how the budget was set when it was originally set. So that's how the 2023 budget, I can't go back and change it when it was set. So that's what was on there.
Okay.
So I can.
So resolution to that will be what? How do they change that?
So when the resolution to close out the East Urban Renewal area, that final closeout, which I'll talk about, that's what those projects were final set. That's what changed that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Raylan, the budget was approved in August,
That is correct.
and then we finalized all the expenditures back in December when we closed the
Yes.
area, so.
I have the clicker. So, in December, on December 19th is when we closed the East Urban Renewal area. All remaining estimated increment funds were budgeted for that project area. We set a budget of $30,055,000 and $155,000 and $135. That is one of your spreadsheets. You're going to see that here. This is one I always bring. You're not going to see it in today's packet because I knew I was going to bring it in the workshop. But this number is never going to change on this worksheet. It's always going to be that $30 million number. There's 28 projects on this list, and as these projects close, there's not going to be any new projects that are added, but as these projects close, we can reallocate the funds, but we can't add any new funds because there's no new funds coming in. So, as you can see, there's 28 projects. So there's 4 that are from other taxing districts. The Ustick Road widening, which is, you're going to see there's quite a bit that is allocated to Ustick Road widening. And I'm not going to go through all of these projects because Rochelle also has a lot of detail that goes through these projects. And if you go on to this spreadsheet, which I gave you, Rob gave an update on each of the project statuses. So if we have any questions on the status or specific projects, we can definitely get that information. I'll have to call Rochelle to see where she is at as well. But like I said, no new projects can be added. The only thing that we can really do is reallocate the funds within the projects. So that $30 million, and when you look at the invoices that I bring monthly, to you guys as a committee, I'll bring this updated spreadsheet, this project list, but it'll only be the cost that you approved the prior month. It won't include any current invoices that I do bring you. So.
Thank you. That's much more easier to understand.
So that's kind of all I have.
Okay. Questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, on February 13th, we had a number of projects here that I'm just looking at here. I need just a little bit of time here to look at this and to compare what Michelle's bringing here as a status budget update. And February 13th, we had one on the agenda, the City of Caldwell, the Centennial Way medium infill for $38,070.03. Is that on this list? Where is that? Am I looking right at it? Widening.
It's number 14, Dave.
Paving Centennial Way, okay.
Rob, would you speak to that? Just explain what's going on there and why you brought it as a necessary?
Thank you. As you know, we talked extensively about this project, and this is the infill basically of the entire median all the way up Centennial. The intent was to get rid of the vegetation and the maintenance obligation that was putting our crews out there on that state highway, basically in an area that's not very safe. And so the project was designed. The cost that you're seeing there would have been for design of the project. They just recently started construction this last week. The state has required that all construction happens at night. And so you're not going to see a lot of work going on during the day, but every night they're out there between Sunday night to Thursday night working on this project, and it's supposed to take about 2 months.
Thank you. Any questions for Rob on that?
Yeah. So I see that it's being worked on. I see that it's under construction. So this $38,070.03, that's for design? That's the first payment for design?
Yes, that was in February. It should be designed because construction just barely started. So that would be a design payment. The other thing to note that I need to clarify on that is this project's only covered partially by urban renewal. About half of it's urban renewal funded, and then the other half is city funded. That was a decision made by the Urban Renewal Commission in December.
Okay, so this is where I have fogginess here. I thought in December we did not approve that as a part of an urban renewal project.
I believe that we did.
I thought that we did. It was a safety issue, so I think it was partially funded, and then the determination was to go to the city and try to get the remainder of the funding.
Which I knew about the safety issue, and I knew we all spoke on it, but I thought we voted that was a city street department project. Is there any way to check that?
I can go back to the minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to. Can we look at that in a minute?
And as soon as Rochelle gets here, she'd be able to confirm. My recollection is that we did approve part of it, and that's easy to check. If there's any mistake there, we can certainly correct it.
Right. I'm just, that's my question on that one, and then let me just look at this.
And I will also mention that if for some reason the construction wasn't approved by urban renewal, the design would have been approved a long time ago through urban renewal, and so that invoice, that 32 or whatever it was, 38,000, that would have been approved by urban renewal some time back, and then it just would have been the construction that would have been pulled.
Okay,
by the
yeah, 'cause
time we got to December.
I thought in December we were voting on an amount of almost $500,000.
You look at 14 on here.
Hmm?
Number 14 on this sheet.
Yeah.
Number 14 on this sheet does say it's $426,822.
Yeah, and the total project scope was
I just
close
thought,
to 700,000.
excuse me, I thought we didn't approve that. If my, but,
Well, let's run it down.
and then I had, some other questions on from that meeting on the 13th. You wanna hear the next one? The next question I have?
Sure.
Or do you wanna,
Mhm.
so we're
Yeah,
researching
let's
that
go
one,
ahead.
right?
Yeah.
So the 21st Avenue parking lot, and that is item number, on the update, what number is that? 13? Okay, so there's 214,285, 74,000,
I have that item for census meeting, from the close meeting. And, there was a lot of discussion, and then the end result was moved by Warwick, seconded by Jody, to approve resolution number 2022-57 for the Centennial Way median inlay and beautification project, and amending the URA contribution amount to be no more than $359,865.78.
oh, okay, so we amended it,
We amended the amount,
okay,
so it was not the total amount that was originally presented.
okay, that clears that up.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, the 21st Avenue parking lot for 74,253.83 that we were looking at in February 13th. That's, part of the 214,258 remaining, is that right?
What number are you on?
That's number 13.
Number 13, okay.
Is that right?
Hearing
I think so. That's what's remaining, so that,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next question, TVCC remodel design of $23,498.95. That was, that was just design, right? That wasn't to fix the floors or something like that, right?
Yeah, there was design that was approved, that was less than 50,000, and then there was a request in December to approve additional design and construction, and that request was denied by Urban Renewal, and the whole thing was canceled through Urban Renewal,
Okay,
is my recollection.
right. Mr. Chairman, that's all the question I have on February 13th.
Very good.
Yeah.
Questions from any of the other, commissioners? Are there any other workshop items that, you would like to ask about this evening?
I have one more.
Sure.
Who authorizes the expenses and the bills that are, I mean, who ultimately authorizes those payments?
Raylene, we'll go to you.
No problem. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I heard who authorized
Who authorizes the payments on these in the end? Who does?
on those payments.
Yeah,
So essentially, right now, what ends up happening is that the payments go through City of Caldwell. So first, the payments run through City of Caldwell, and then they come to us, and we either do a monthly or quarterly reimbursement on them, and we bring them to you and ask you for approval on them. So either they get authorized through a supervisor or a manager or director on the City of Caldwell side for
Okay.
payment, and then council does approve them as well through the finance committee. So they review all of the city expenses as well.
so they flow through council. So by the time you get here, you guys have already seen this, right? You guys were kind of privy to it.
I'm not sure if it comes in before or after. Raylan, do you know?
So
When we
they're,
approve, is it the,
it's always gonna be,
Or-
council's always gonna see them before we ask Urban Renewal for reimbursement.
Okay. There you go. Okay, I didn't know that.
So.
Thank you, Raylene, for answering that for me.
Anybody need a status update on any project while we have Rob here?
Well, we have a couple coming up in the agenda, so
Yeah.
we'll wait
We'll get him then.
till then.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other business, we will, call an end to this, workshop. Thanks, and we will see you at 6 o'clock for our regularly scheduled meeting.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
It will.
Yep.
It
We
will.
can know what, almost adding with the new one, because we can keep up with it now, is adding the date, so we know when it was approved. So it's easier to find. It's
Yeah.
good that his memory was good.
Yeah.
If his memory's not good, someone's gotta read all of that
Right.
and find it. But no, but as we move forward here with the new one, the first
Mhm.
project we approved goes on here, when it
Yeah.
was approved.
I like that. Makes it much more user-friendly.
Yeah, so in 20 years from now, when we're all gone, off
Mhm.
the board,
Yeah.
off the board.
Well, I don't know. The clock is ticking, man.
Then the next folks can have it.
Yeah.
Right? And then if they wanna get up to date, they can go read for the minutes of it.
Yeah, that's him. There we go. Thank you very much.
Hey, look at those pickleball courts, baby.
I know, right?
I haven't seen a single pickle be played out there yet.
Well, it's not done yet, but I bet there will
They're,
be.
they're getting plenty of practice. I see them online. I follow them online. I'm gonna go down there.
I'm doing the first tournament out there.
Are ya?
And I am, they guarantee me it's done.
Order of the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency. It's Monday evening, March 13th, 6 o'clock. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Porter,
Here.
Commissioner Doty,
Here.
Commissioner Warwick. Here. Commissioner Brooks,
Here.
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Allgood,
Here.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Very good. We have a full house tonight. That's good. It's been a while. Are there any conflicts of interest between, members of the commission and things on the agenda this evening? Okay, not seeing anything. Moves us on to special presentations, and I don't believe that there are any special presentations this evening.
Dave wants to announce the score one more time.
Dave, would you please provide the score for us?
Absolutely. It's College of Idaho 98. The other team was, 40. I think it was 40 or 50.
50, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
50 points. So, on to Wednesday.
Absolutely. Go Yotes.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir, Mr. Doty. Public comments. Anybody in the public that would like to address the, commission? Okay. Stephen, anybody under a chair over there? Oh. Very good. Takes us to the consent calendar. Do we have a motion as to the, disposition of the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
I move we accept the consent calendar as written.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Warwick, second by Mr. Doty. Any comments? Okay, would the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Allgood,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Doty.
Yes.
Very good. This brings us to old business, and the fresh face, Mr. Stephen Jenkins, will bring us a report.
All right. Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Good evening. Happy to be here with you all tonight. Just want to start off, as I typically do, with miscellaneous updates. So this is where I involve projects from across the Caldwell region. Project Stillwater is an industrial park concept working on a large parcel near the Sky Ranch Business Park. This project will soon launch phase 1 of development, which will feature 300,000 square feet of their first 300,000 square foot facility within the park. Users have already been predetermined for this little industrial park that is being developed, and the proposed buildings within it. So, in other words, the developer has some groups coming in that will occupy the space that's yet to be built. So that's always a good thing. Project Richard is a boutique hotel operator that will be visiting Caldwell to further investigate the DeChase Mixes property downtown, so I'm excited to host them next month. Really excited for things to materialize on that one. They'll be responding to the RFQ that's currently out, but also following up with additional visits to the Caldwell area. Project Smooth is a juicery in the Boise area that is considering a location in Caldwell. They are investigating multiple locations within our market, and it's including North Ranch. So they're honing in on North Ranch, but looking at other areas as well. PEG Companies, this is a large group out of the Salt Lake region. They are finalizing plans for their build-to-rent project. The project is valued at $150 million, and it is on 39 acres, so right behind the Walmart on Laster Lane, and they'll have 388 units on that property. So excited to welcome them. It's going to be a Class A facility. Fat Guys Fresh Deli, they would like to open in May. They will be occupying a drive-through facility in the new BVA retail pad within North Ranch, so it fronts the D&B on Highway 2026. And then Project Rust is a manufacturing facility focused on the airplane avionics industry. They're looking at a 50,000 square foot facility that manufactures turbine equipment. They're an out-of-state enterprise looking to develop a location in our market. Project Yankee is continuing to work with a large grocer interested in the Caldwell area. Communication is ongoing with ITD to meet their access needs for the location of interest. Project Greenbrier, they visited Caldwell recently and they have determined 2 locations that will likely suit their needs. This is a fast casual operator, restaurant operator. Phelan Development, they'll be breaking ground in the spring on 4 buildings totaling about 252,000 square feet. So this will be an exciting project on the corner of Smead and Highway 2026. And then Project St. George is a large-scale mixed-use development along Highway 55. They're looking at a commercial, residential, mixed-use development within the area. And then City and Commerce Magazine, just an FYI, they're highlighting the city of Caldwell for their May feature, or March feature, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead of myself. But we're really excited to be featured in this magazine and for Caldwell to be spotlighted in this way. So exciting things, and it really started with Urban Renewal. So thank you all for your commitment to success in the Caldwell community. Each project really helps to beautify our community, so we appreciate that. The North Caldwell Urban Renewal District is something that, of course, we've been working on. Commissioner Brooks, I'm glad to see you here representing Canyon County. This is specific to these projects that are specific to that district. District 26, we've been working with this group regarding plans to annex into the corporate city limits of Caldwell. As we review their site plan, we continue to investigate the timing for utility infrastructure planned for the area. And then Project Grizzly, financing, planning, and coordination continue to move forward. Excited to see things materialize for that project. It's a commercial developer looking at the I-84 frontage within the new district. Project Family, they're a family-oriented entertainment concept interested in Caldwell. We recently met with their engineers to discuss utility infrastructure in North Caldwell. Good meeting, so plans seem to be moving forward, albeit slowly, but it's a good sign. So we're excited to hopefully welcome them to the community. And then Project Ag is a manufacturer visiting Caldwell next month. They've identified 40 acres in North Caldwell that are suitable for their needs. So some good activity happening, not as busy as we once were, but I feel like it's very consistent. And then downtown updates, the DeChase Mixes, the RFQ closes at the end of March. We continue to work with DeChase on a parking agreement as well as hotel prospects that continue to investigate the site more thoroughly. And then loading zones, we're looking at loading zones within the area. DeChase Mixes has expressed a desire for one, but we've also had other users step up and say that they would like to have loading zones. We're looking at central areas for loading zones that we can incorporate into the downtown core. And then lastly, I got ahead of myself with this notation on my notes, but parking workshop, we had a workshop recently with City Council. Thought things went well. We really went into great detail with a potential parking garage downtown, and we are working on now on a parking study and a future RFP to disseminate to prospective users for future agreements. And then lastly, I've included this little new feature here, takeaways holistically. So Caldwell is continuing to receive retail commercial interest from national users. That's always a good thing. Industrial activity continues to grow, and this hasn't slowed. I looked at a recent TOK report, and we're right around 3% for vacancy rates, and that's still very, very low. We were recently at 2%, so that's a little bit of an increase from that point, but again, still historically very low. Supplies are still high, which means high cost, but the supply chain continues to be a challenge. I would anticipate in the future that we're going to see a lot of reshoring activity taking place. So folks are going to look at their distribution lines and bringing them closer into the markets, domestic markets. So hopefully Caldwell will be the recipient of some of that activity. And then residential activity is slowing, but we have about 1,500 units or so in the pipeline, which will put us in good stead as we move forward and in a really good position for our housing stock in the future. I know multifamili's really picked up. We have a few that are notable, but others that are a little less prominent, but are still continuing to emerge. So that's always good to see that activity take front. We're still, roughly about 30% increase from permit activity from last year. So definitely some good trends in the right direction, despite the overarching concerns with the economy. So with that, Chairman, Commissioners, I apologize for babbling on there, but any questions I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Jenkins? While you're there, Stephen, for our new commissioners, would you give just a 30,000-foot view of what your role is on economic development and how your role differs from Ophelia? And then we'll ask her the same.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. So my role, our role in economic development, just holistically, is we try to create jobs and help to just create a flow of wealth within the community. That's the first and foremost goal. The second thing is we attract different business groups to come into our market. So we look at different gaps that we have in our community and look to fill those gaps with prospects that can fill the void for our citizens here. The next thing is retention. So business retention expansion is a big piece of what we do. So the businesses that operate here, we look to retain them. I've had a business retention expansion visit with Fresca recently, and we just met with them regarding their needs and growth and things that they're looking to do. So looking to be hands-on. We're a two-person team, but that's a really big goal for us. And then the last thing is to expand. So we like to see businesses expand. Franklin Building Supply recently expanded, Capital Distributing expanded by about 65,000 square feet. So all those things are wins for the city, because once businesses expand, they continue to invest and grow here and add jobs, and that is a primary function of our role, of course. So specific to my role within economic development, I focus pretty heavily on industrial activity. And Ophelia, her go-to, and she'll explain this, I kind of stole her spotlight a little bit. I went ahead of myself on just on autopilot, but she does a lot with downtown, so I'll leave it at that. But I do just with regard to attracting businesses and also with industrial activity. Industrial prospects, they take up a lot of time and energy and just have a lot of needs that need to be met. So that consumes the bulk of my time, and also the urban renewal districts as we look to develop and grow that area. Certainly look at planning and development and how those things need to come together.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Steve?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Stephen, do you collaborate, does your department collaborate with Nampa, Meridian, Boise Economic Development at all? I mean, do you guys meet monthly or yearly, or do you do anything that way?
Absolutely, Chairman, Commissioner Moore. I've never heard of those cities before, but we definitely, we work with our regional partners, and we work to help. We're all in this together, right? It's all just a large valley, and Boise Valley Economic Partnerships, they hold meetings each month, wherein all of the communities get together and share ideas and different goals that we have and objectives, and very, very strong alignment there. And Ophelia and I are even at the point where we communicate with Nampa quite a bit regarding different groups that may or may not be a good fit for our community, perhaps they are for theirs, and vice versa. So we don't give them a whole lot, but we definitely, if there's an opportunity that can better serve that community, we certainly are open to that. We have great relationships with each and every community here in the Valley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Chairman.
Ophelia, we'll have you come up.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Just to piggyback on Stephen, I'll start with downtown updates. Project Strong, I usually start with updates. I know in the past you've asked what's happened with those projects, and so just wanted to give you that first. So Project Strong, it's a local retail business. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find space, so I won't name them yet until next month, but they are closing April 1st. So the space that they were occupying was a bit expensive, about $4,000 a month. And even though they were a business that was doing well in another community, it takes a little bit of time in our community to kind of get that customer coming through that door. So there's still an opportunity out there, one that they're having conversations with a current downtown building owner. So, but as of right now, April 1st would be their last day of business. Project Falcon, This is a business out of Ada County. It was recently purchased out of Ada County. The owners are local from Caldwell. I met with them, I believe, a couple months ago, and they did let me know that their expansion into Canyon County was going to be Nampa first. They do have family members out there that are doing well in Nampa, so they'll start there first, and then they'll make their way into Caldwell in the near future. Project Corn, this was a franchisee that was looking to be the first franchise in the state of Idaho. We did meet with the company. The company indicated that in order for a purchase to happen, they would have to buy 3 units, which is $300,000 plus liquid assets of $2 million. The family had enough to purchase 1 unit. Unfortunately, this franchise does not allow for 1 purchase, so there's still ongoing discussion with other family members if there would be any interest that they can all together purchase 3 units. Project Family, this is a salon that's seeking space to open up a full-service salon. Space has been identified, and we are viewing some spaces on the 22nd for them. Project Duck, this is another restaurant business that we were helping here locally in Caldwell. They have identified a potential end user that's seeking to lease space for 10 years. So that's good news. The end user will be a restaurant out of Ada County. And for new projects, moving on to new projects, Project House, this business would be the first concept to open in downtown. It's in the early stages of identifying space and exploring that concept. Project Line, seeking space that will allow for quick pickup, small drive-through. Project Athletic, local business out of Ada County that is seeking to expand, will combine outdoor space with indoor space. They do very well in Ada County. And these are all local, by the way. These are not any franchise. They're local within our Treasure Valley community, just will be new to our community. Project Genius is a local Caldwell family seeking to offer services to ages 4 through 12. And then finally, Project Collect. These business owners were here on Friday. They are from Ada County as well. They have 4 concepts in Ada County, all different concepts. And they have about 10 different ideas in mind of new concepts that they want to put forward. And they've identified a couple of spaces in Caldwell for those new concepts. Not exactly sure what concepts they'll bring to our community. They did share that it'd be different than anything that we have in our community. They do have a restaurant, a couple of breweries, fitness centers in the Ada County, but whatever they're bringing to Caldwell will be different. So those are my updates. And just to add to Stephen's comment in regards to the work that we do in economic development, I think Stephen painted the picture fairly well. A lot of the feedback that we get from these individuals that we meet with is that we provide a thorough overview of our community, which makes them want to come back and do business in our community, whether that be East Caldwell, downtown, or other areas of Caldwell. So we're excited always to get that feedback from them. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ophelia. Any questions for Ophelia?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Do you come across in your travels and the people you're talking with, how much does the discussion come up with any metered parking, downtown parking obstacles in your day?
Yeah, so most of these businesses are local and they are from the Treasure Valley, primarily Ada County, and they don't see our parking as an issue in our community, because again, if you go to Boise, you're expected to pay for parking, you're expected to walk. I think it's more of just our downtown community, and it could be because they operate here and they see those pinpoints. So, but from our Ada County community, they don't see parking as an issue. Nothing that they bring up as an issue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Ophelia.
Thank you.
Takes us to new business, and our first item is a public hearing, the legislative process for public comment on calendar year 2022 annual activities report for the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency. And Raylene, are you bringing that for us?
You made them, though. I do, thank you.
We'll take them. Thanks. Oh, okay.
Okay. So the annual report is something that we have to submit by state law. So it kind of, this just slideshow goes through the annual report, really quickly. So, I figure go kind of line by line. So, it goes through the profile of the Urban Renewal Agency. Essentially, the city approved the Urban Renewal Agency on December 21st, 1998. It's comprised of 6 commissioners, obviously, and then we have 3 staff, legal counsel, city clerk, and then the finance director, who is the treasurer. The 3 staff are non-voting, obviously. The purpose and the goals of the Urban Renewal Agency are economic development activities, and then the rehabilitation and expansion of streets and providing adequate access. Then the further development of public utilities and to increase the viability and readiness of future development opportunities. There's a lot of agency highlights that are highlighted in the annual report. I'm not necessarily going to read through all of them. We did do business incentive grants in 2022. We went through quite a few construction projects. There is quite a few that are highlighted. I think there's 14 or so. So these are also highlighted in our financial statements. One of these, obviously, with urban renewal, it is all about the projects and what we do. You know, it's important that we are specific about our projects and what we do and how we spend our money. And so through the last year of the East Urban Renewal Agency plan, obviously there's been a lot more money, and so all of these are in the East Urban Renewal what word am I thinking? Not East Urban Renewal area.
District.
Thank you. That word was going to come to me, so I apologize. So there's quite a few. We do go through them, and within this report that we do have has to be submitted through state law, along with the annual audit. If you have any questions on these highlights, I'd be happy to answer. Well, I wish I could answer questions, but I don't have all of these, but I'm sure Stephen or Ophelia could answer any questions on these highlights. They did go ahead and provide them. But with these highlights, they really were what we spent our money on in 2022. A lot of them are the highlights. And then we did go through the audit. Rochelle will cover the audit in more detail, but with the audit, it does cover all of the assets, liabilities, and income and operating expenses. When we submit the annual report, once you guys vote on this and have this public hearing, once we do have to submit this to the state controller's office, and so we do have to submit. It is available to anybody that goes to the state controller's office. They can request this report for any urban renewal agency. So this report will be available to anybody. So, in 2022, we did make 3 we paid off 3 of our bonds. We still have 2 left. So we did pay off the 2012, 2016, and 2018 bonds series. I did talk about how we did close East Urban Renewal Project area, because that was significant in 2022. As required by this annual, statement of activities, we do have to have the budget in here. And so I did provide a copy of the budget. And then the budget versus actual, and this is as of September 30th of what's presented in the financial statement, which is in line, with the guidance that we received from the State Controller's Office. So, stand for any questions.
Thank you, Raylene. Any questions for, Raylene? Okay, very good. As this is a public hearing, we have, nobody who has signed up, in favor, in support, and nobody who has signed up in a neutral category, and no one who has signed up, in opposition to receiving this report. And so at this point, with the motion, we will close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Warwick, second by Mr. Doty. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, same sign. Takes us to our next action item, which is to consider the resolution accepting the 2022 calendar year annual activities report for the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Allgood?
I move that we accept the 2020 calendar year report resolution as presented.
2022?
That's what I said, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Allgood, a second by Ms. Warwick. Any further discussion? Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Allgood,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Doty,
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Very good. Takes us to action item number 3, and that has to do with the Urban Renewal Agency Audit Report. And Rochelle, is this you? Welcome.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here tonight. Before I get started on the financial statements, I want to apologize. I had prepared some documents for you for the earlier workshop in relation to project detail. I hear everything went fine, and so you may or may not still want those, but they are available. I did prepare them. If you want to email me, I created a summary or synopsis, I guess, of the major projects that outlined resolutions that have been approved in the past for the projects to show encumbrance of funds, obligated funds, and assigned funds for the projects, with a little bit more detail as to what those projects were for, to help give some clarity as to when they were approved, what was approved, where we're at to date, how it relates to the current budget on the project list that was presented earlier in the workshop. So if any of you, I have only one paper copy, and then I have it on a USB drive, but if any of you want to discuss that after the meeting tonight to provide clarity, just let me know.
Great, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I also have the financial statements, so I'll hand those out here real quick.
That's okay. Go ahead. We're fine, thank you.
Okay, so in the financial statements, there is a lot of talk about how the agency was, when it was created, its purpose, its intent, which was already covered in the annual activities report. The activities discussed in that annual report are also discussed, as Raylene said, in the financial statements as well. I'm going to be focusing more on the actual financial piece of it, which I feel is most appropriately presented on page 12 of the financial statements. This is where it lists the assets and liabilities, the net position, and then on page 13, it has our expenditures, revenues, and then the fund balance that we had as of 9/30. On page 12, it lists assets, which include cash of $7,128,308. It has receivables, taxes receivables specifically, which is the amount of taxes we expect to receive in this current fiscal year for 2023, of $11,274,562. And then it has restricted cash of $1,537,684, which is restricted to pay the final bond payments in the current 2023 year. For liabilities, we had $357,954 in vouchers payable, which were paid out within probably a month or so of the year closing, and we had the $655,687 paid out in due to other governments, which is essentially the city. So those are projects that were being reimbursed to the city that were paid out within 30 to 60 days of the year closing. In the third column, statement of net position, there's a due within 1 year for longer term liabilities, and those are the final bond payments. So as you can see, the restricted cash of 1.5 is really close to the amount of the bond payments of 1.4. There is additional amount restricted there for interest, because the bonds here include principal only. The total listed for fund balance in the first column, $7,670,682. That is the fund balance of the Urban Renewal District as of 9/30/2022. The following page, page 13, you can see that in the first column you have $16,941,513 in expenditures. Out of that, you have $4,463,792 that were went to bond payments, of which 3 out of the 5 were paid in full last year. $4,120,532 was spent on capital outlay. Mostly that consists of land purchases that were for future land development purposes. You also have $8,149,056 that was for other project and operating costs. The revenues for last fiscal year were $11,117,404. $11,068,756 was related to property tax revenue. You'll see that we used a total of $5,824,109 of our fund balance last year to spend down our fund balance, leaving us with an end of year balance of $7,670,682, which ties to the fund balance listed on page 12. Just kind of a few recap things in the assets listed here on page 12. In the final column, it lists $5,136,984,000 in assets, of which is land held for development. As a side note, we did sell land in October, so out of that $5 million, a piece of land that was worth $2.1 million was sold to the Urban Renewal Agency. It was quite a big land sale, and so it significantly increased the amount of cash flow related to be able to spend on projects in 2023. So although we ended our year with $7 million in cash flow, which is close to the cash balance, the liquid cash balance on page 12, we did end up selling this property. We purchased it, and it was valued on our books at a value of about $2 million. We sold it for about $8 million. So we had an influx of about $6 million. The $6 million plus the $7 million in fund balance brought us to about $12 million in additional cash flow, plus the additional $11 million approximately that we plan to receive in this current fiscal year brings us to about $21 million, which is close to the amount of the projects budgeted on the project list. And that's how we're coming to determine that number for what we have for remaining projects as we move forward this year and into next year to be able to spend that fund balance down. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty.
just looking at the audit report, Rochelle, there's 2 significant risks identified on here. One being the management override of controls and the revenue recognition. Is there anything that we have done to reduce that risk, or anything that we can do to reduce the risk?
That is a risk that is new this year. I believe we've already taken steps to mediate that risk. One, I think that that's there in place because the prior director left, kind of on a shorter term notice than someone in that kind of a position would normally give. Did not allow us time to be able to hire another director who could present the financial statements. My position being somewhat of treasurer, controller, or deputy treasurer at the time, there was a lot that I did in preparing this, and it's probably a little too much. I do all the numbers, I'm making sure everything's getting input correctly, and then to also be the person to be presenting that information is somewhat of an internal control that presents a risk. And now that we have Raylyn, she will be standing here in front of you next year, hopefully, to be able to present and prepare these financial statements so I can revert back to my role as treasurer in assisting to make sure that these transactions that record all of this are done appropriately, and I am out of the preparation process. And so it will hopefully provide for that internal control next year, and we won't see that on the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Rochelle?
Okay.
No pressure, Raylyn. You're the risk reducer.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the, audit report from Ide Bailey?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Doty, a second by Ms. Warwick. Any further discussion? Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldred?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes. Takes us a little bit longer to get through a vote this time, doesn't it? That's good. Thank you so much, Rochelle. Appreciate all your work, and like you said, stepping in to, a big task in mid-year. You did it really, really well. Thanks so much. Takes us to action item number 4, which is to consider invoices for payment. Back to you, Raylyn.
There's usually not this much financial stuff, so do not worry. Currently we have 5 invoices. We have the $18,000 for the March Economic Development Contribution, the $9,805 for the February Attorney Services, $420,087.97 for the Fair Expo site, which on your project list is project number 4, $53,449.03 for the Creekside Mixed Use Project, which is project number 9 on your list, and then the $14,000 for the 22 annual URA audit fee, for a total of $515,341.93.
Very good. Thank you for identifying those projects with the,
Yeah.
with that. That's really helpful. Any questions for Raylyn? Mr. Allgood?
Raylyn, we have great attorneys, but, the cost of those attorneys seems to me, if memory serves me, this is much higher than what I've seen in the past. Have we had a recent bump?
So Chairman and, Commissioner Allgood,
How big
this,
a bump do you sorry, go ahead.
this is the agreed upon contract for the urban renewal, for the budget for this fiscal year. Be something that we realign every year, so.
Yeah, I just wondered what it bumped up from.
Oh, from the previous year?
That's the number I'm
I was
remembering.
thinking it was 7.
Last year, our payment monthly was a little under 7,000, and so it jumped up quite a bit. I'd say about 3,000, give or take, which is about 32,000 maybe annually. But we have seen, in direct relation to that, huge uptick in projects, which having developers and doing a lot of the development agreement work provides a lot of staff time from the attorneys. And so, I think that they align that with projected time they feel they need to spend on that. I continue to see that will probably be the case as we move to spend out these funds, but likely will go down once these projects are coming to an end.
I was wondering if Mr. Waterman bought a new truck or what the deal was.
Right. Mr. Chairman,
I would agree with what Rochelle just said. I mean, the workload and everything like that, with the growth and the amount of things that they're seeing, I saw that too, but it's explainable.
Well, we could certainly keep Mr. Waterman here later this
Yeah,
evening.
right, yeah. I don't see overtime in that contract, right?
Yeah. Any other questions for, Raylene?
I believe Mr. Waterman's gonna tell us what truck he bought.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Waterman? You have the floor.
Commissioner, I was just gonna, just for the, so you understand how the firm, generates anyway, the firm generates the retainer and how it works. As you know, the retainer is set as a monthly retainer. If there's more time spent than was estimated, the agency pays that flat amount. If there's less time spent, the agency still pays the flat amount. The objective is to have the budgeted amount be static, as opposed to a lot of other firms in the valley. If they're providing municipal work, they'll have some sort of retainer set as a minimum, and then if they go over that, they'll charge for it. But HMH generally prefers to, and it's the same with the city contracts, set an amount based upon estimated hours. So the two factors that changed the budget from the prior year, the first was that the average work per month done for the agency in the first quarter of 2022 was at 53 hours per month. The prior retainer was estimated at 37 hours per month, so the workload increased substantially. The second component was that the hourly billable rate went from 175 to 185 per hour. That's still well below, I think, the lowest we've seen for competitors bidding for civil work. But anyway, those two components coalesced together at budget time, both a pretty substantial increase that in the first quarter of 2022, the firm was just working those extra hours at last year's rate, so making the retainer match that, and then also that $10 per hour increase in the hourly rate. So anyway, just so that Mr. Shelty doesn't get mad at me for not saying something, but no, I still drive the same car.
Okay, same car. All right, very good. Mr. Moore? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just, and you know this, just so everybody else knows this, I asked, Ray Lynn about the $18,000 breakdown for economic development contributions. I've never had that explained to me. I've never seen it. I approve it. And she did a really good job of providing, and stop, dropping, and providing me that information, and you saw it. So thank you. That was very transparent, and I can speak to it. On the, $420,000 and the $53,000 payments there, I asked for invoices on those, just to familiarize myself with those as well. Rochelle provided me a thumb drive, right? And I'm gonna go through that, which I just wanna see what that looks like and know what I'm doing. But I appreciate that, so.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Yeah.
No other questions? Okay, very good. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty?
I'll make a motion that we consider the invoices for payment from the Urban Renewal Agency Treasurer as presented, and that we approve them.
I would second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Doty and a second by Mr. Moore. Any further comment or questions? Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks? Yes. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Recording.
Okay, yes. Very good, thanks. And we're back to you for the treasurer's report.
So for the month of February, the tax deposits were $337,944.20. I apologize, I did not write the breakdown between, the east area and the north area. I will have that out to you, I apologize. But that does make the total cash balance, and then we had interest of $176.91. So a total of $19,131,793.54. The invoices that you approved last month have not come through the cash, so they are still outstanding. One of the invoices that I did want to make a note of, that we talked about, the $4,237.50, which was for Project Imagine. It was in the invoice I sent you. That invoice is actually for the North Urban Renewal area, so that will come out of that increment fund and not the East, increment fund. So I just wanted to make a note of that, because that I did not speak to last month, so I apologize. You also have, we received $2,336.83 in interest in the local government investment pool. So that brings that balance to $754,956.09. So total available is $19,886.749.63 in cash. Now the breakdown of that, obviously, for projects, is, the $12,909,467.80, and, for the other taxing districts, and then the $5,888,448.81, for projects. And then in the north area is $38,880.67. So, any questions on that? And then for bond payments, we did receive just a couple interest payments, interest deposits of $2,648.98 and $2,694.34. So it does bring the ending balance for those to $1,510,649.63.
Thank you, Raylene. Questions? Mr. August?
I don't know whether Adam and Zach understand the difference between, restricted money and unrestricted money and why they look different. Can you explain that just briefly, Raylene?
Sure. I might have to call on Rochelle too. But essentially, when we receive increment funds, essentially, we have, let me see if I get this right. So the restricted is increment funds that we receive from the taxing districts, and we split it out specific by taxing districts, and we ask them when we receive it if they want to allocate funds to specific projects. So Canyon County said, yes, we want to allocate our funds to specific projects. So we have restricted their projects specifically, and, on this, and so that's part of that $12 million. We have, what else is in that school district? The Canyon Highway District.
It's projects 1 through 4.
Yeah, 1 through 4 is included in the restricted of that 12 million. And so the restricted projects, that's not other taxing districts, that is specific to City of Caldwell tax increment. And then the north, the URA North, that is just the North Urban North area increment funding that we have received. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In relation to the restricted, that was, about a year or maybe a year and a half ago, the agency gave the districts the opportunity to identify if they wanted to use their increment funding on a project. And then the projects that we have now, projects 1 through 4, were identified. There was another one in there for Value View that has been since been completed. And so we were kind of keeping that money restricted for those projects so that they had the availability to request those funds on projects. Now that we've kind of summarized all of that, it's no longer really restricted anymore. And I was planning to actually combine all the cash funds, because we had them restricted for that purpose previously. But because we're no longer offering any more projects, and any additional funding that wasn't asked for by the districts is just coming back to go to city projects. And so we're likely going to be combining it all now into one. So it will likely look different moving forward. That restricted amount will essentially go away.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have a motion to approve the monthly cash reconciliation report?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Warwick. We have a second. Second by Mr. Garcia. Any further questions or comments? Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Alvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Billy.
Yes.
Very good. Brings us to that well-paid Mr. Waterman and the attorney report. Good evening, Douglas.
Hi, Commissioner, how's it going? Good to see you all. Alrighty, so there are two items here, and Mark said, well, neither one of them is particularly good news, which may be why I'm here tonight. So on the tax delinquencies and penalties for increment revenue, just as a reminder, that particular dispute is between the agency and the county, and it has to do with when taxes are unpaid and there are penalties assessed and late fees assessed, and then those are subsequently collected. There's this open-ended question of sorts about whether or not the late penalties and delinquencies and fees get passed along to the underlying taxing district for whom those taxes were meant to be collected. The agency's position is that, like with all other taxing districts, if $10 was owed to the agency and there is interest and penalties associated with a non-payment of that $10, when the $10 finally gets paid at some later date, that the penalties and fees and interest ought to come along with the $10 to the agency at that same time. The county's practice has been, as I understand it, not to pass along the late fees and penalties to the agency. And the exact scope of that has been a little bit difficult to determine. There was an attempt by I think it was by a city, I'm not sure exactly who drafted it, but House Bill 150 was a piece of state legislation, the purpose of which was to clarify that those penalties and interest and things do get passed along to the underlying taxing districts. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your preference, that particular bill looks like it has spent an undue amount of time sitting in a desk drawer of the House Rev and Tax. I think it's been there since mid-February, so it's not likely to go anywhere. Mr. Hilty's expectation is that the issue probably won't be resolved. There won't be a large amount of interest in continuing to find a resolution until the session is over, just in the event that there's some piece of legislation that materially impacts the statute that governs that. And so right now we're sort of in install mode, but hopefully when the session's over, then there'll be some more movement on that. Any questions about that one?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. What is that number total? I mean, just a ballpark guesstimate. What's that number in fees that aren't collected by URA, in interest?
I'm not certain. I'm not certain that anyone knows at this point the exact number. I don't think we've gotten that nailed down. I'm trying to remember. At one point when discussing with Mr. Hilty, this was a few weeks ago, I had asked him the same question, and he gave a similar answer to the one I just gave you, but thought that it was, I had originally thought that it would be relatively insignificant, but at the time, based upon rough numbers I think he had from the finance department or maybe from the county, he thought it was a fairly high number. Now, that's a fairly high number spread over a number of years, right? And so the ability to recover, diminishes at there's a drop dead date where, well, if you didn't ask for it, now there's a statute of limitations that's run. But I'm not certain what the number is, but I think it's not insignificant. It's a significant amount of money. So,
Mr. Chairman, why couldn't we find out what that is and just kind of move forward with this? I think we're stepping over things to just waste a little bit of time thing and let the county have that maybe. I don't know. You know, we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it.
Mr. Chair, I disagree. I think if the county owes the money, then they should pay the money. So I'm willing to wait out to the legislative session and see what direction we should go. I think it is several hundred thousands of dollars, and so that could be quite significant for the city.
Okay. I can certainly pass along. I can ask Mark to do his best to provide something more concrete in terms of number by the next meeting. That will give you some sense of whether we're talking about $7,400 or $740,000, and that might be instructive. So I'll make a note of that and see if he's got some avenues that he can pursue to determine what that number is. I don't know if it's
possible at this point, or it's certainly possible with all the information that exists in the world, but whether or not he can get it by next meeting, I don't know. So, thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. And our favorite project, Aztec Development?
Yes. All right, Commission. So, on this item, it was determined recently, and by recently I think within the last few months, that in order to bury the overhead lines that are currently in the alley adjacent to this development, there's going to be a need for a pad site for a transformer. And the only location where that pad site can be located is on the property owned by the Aztec Development Company. The consequence of which is that there will be some modification. Originally, their design plan included a footprint that covered the entire square footage of the property they owned. Now there'll be a pad there that will have a transformer on it, so it will require some changes. I know that Mark is still regularly communicating with Ann Kunkel, and I know that he spoke with Brent Orton, who'd be the city staff member, who'd be the point of contact for making sure that gets pushed through quickly, and Brent's on it, and has met with Aztec and is moving as quick as he can, and has met with Idaho Power to figure out exactly what they need so they can get definitive design plans on where the pad needs to go and its size, and that will permit Aztec, that will remove any ongoing validity to an assertion that the potential pad site is an impediment to finalizing design for Aztec. So the goal is to get that done quickly. I know Ann Kunkel, who is the legal representative for Aztec Development, sent over an updated project schedule today. That was around noon. Mark has not had a chance yet to go through and see that, but I'm sure it'll get presented at your next meeting to get that realigned with the current practical realities. So that's the status of that project. Any questions about that one?
For our new commission members, would you point out what property we're talking about specifically?
This is a property that is immediately behind the bandstand at the plaza. And so there were, if I recall, 3 lots, one of which was owned by Urban Renewal, and an RFP was issued for that one lot owned by Urban Renewal, and the successful respondent to that RFP was Aztec Development, who purchased and closed on the other 2 lots, unifying that lot into a single, all that area behind the bandstand, all that dirt into a single lot. And maybe there's 4 lots and 4 total, okay. And so did the agency own the furthest northeast lot and the second one, or the furthest southwest lot?
Agency owns
the 2 ones at the southwest, okay, very good. So Aztec purchased those northeast furthest 2 lots for their project, and the response to the RFP and the disposition and development agreement and all those things are on file with the agency clerk and can be obtained and reviewed if anyone would like to. So,
All right, any questions for Mr. Waterman?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doty?
So, Mr. Waterman, my issue with Aztec Development is that it seems like every time we get somewhere or give them something, there's something else that pops up. So here we are again with now we need the pad out there to make this thing move forward, which was some of our concerns, I think, when we kept bending over backwards, in my words, for him. So after this pad is approved, they'll submit another design of what they're going to put there. Is there a time limit to submit that design, or again, do you see anything else popping up that they delay it even further?
So I think that this particular thing that popped up was not the result of Aztec's development. It was the result of, as I understand, the trash compactor. So this particular issue is a city issue. Is it such an impediment and so uncertain that Aztec cannot continue at this time with design? That's a debatable point, and that is the point. So we have a contract whereby unforeseen circumstances accepted, they're supposed to proceed in a particular timeline. And whether or not this constitutes a sufficient unforeseen circumstance to modify that timeline is a point that could be argued about. and the consequence of that is that let's try to get through this and get a timeline adjusted because of it. And we can take a reasonably aggressive stance on that timeline adjustment. But the alternative would be to attempt to terminate the DDA for failure to abide by the timeline. This would be raised as a reason outside of their control for failure to comply, and the exact consequence of that, well, there might be a good argument that it's not a sufficient reason to deviate from the timeline. It's not so cut and dry that it would be a simple snap of the fingers, and so this is probably the best path forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Waterman? Great, thanks, Doug.
Thank you all. Good to see you.
Okay, brings us to item number 7, our commissioner reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share this evening other than the basketball score?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
I don't have any reports, but I'd like to welcome our 2 members.
Yes.
Happy to have you on the commission.
Thank you. Yep, happy to be here.
From the crazy house over in Boise, yeah, the gentleman that ran the bill that Douglas was talking about, he's a, city councilman in Pocatello, and a number of cities around the state are having a similar discussion as why those payments aren't coming to the city, and like Mr. Waterman said, it kind of just, made no traction whatsoever. The other thing is, lots of people over at the State House are not fans of urban renewal, so they're continually trying to make it more difficult, carve out more things. The one in the works right now is, Meta is coming to CUNA, and they're coming in an urban renewal district, but they're now trying to, this bill that's coming is, they want to eliminate the value of the contents of Meta's building, i.e. all the servers, et cetera, that will go straight to the city general fund rather than to urban renewal. They're just trying to carve out pieces that won't go to urban renewal, that they can carve out to go directly to city taxes. I don't know how, I don't have any idea whether they're optimistic on that or not optimistic, but that's in the works. They just see huge dollars going to urban renewal, and they're trying to stop that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for that update. That is good to know.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doty.
Just maybe Rob can answer this, I don't know, but is BVA identified other projects that they're willing to complete based off of the previous conversations we had with BVA? You remember the street that we had already built, and then those funds were supposed to be moved to a different project. Have those projects been identified? Are you familiar with what I'm referring to?
Mr. Doty, I'm drawing a blank. Are we talking about North Ranch?
Yes.
So there were, for the funding for North Ranch, a lot of that came from the increment that was from Valley View School District. And so Urban Renewal had allocated, I think it was 2.5 million, or was it 3.5? I think it was 3.5. And so the funds were created, or the funds were used to construct the roadway to incentivize the development to come in. And I'm not sure I understand the second part of your question. You're asking if the funding was...
Yes, within that contract, if that project wasn't available, is how I understand it, then they must use those funds elsewhere within another project. And I think we get most of our information from
Yep.
Brent. And we,
Okay, okay, so what you're referring to is the mitigation that the project owes for their development.
Correct.
Okay, so the mitigation is a requirement for any development within the city, and the mitigation is a value that is set based off of the trip generation of a development. And so before BVA came in, they did a traffic impact study that identified what the potential uses were going to be. And so the trip generation was calculated and the mitigation is calculated, and that is a number that you probably have heard before. It's the value is $960,000 or something to that order. They are still obligated to contribute to that, and we've been having discussions with them. The developers have 2 options. They can either do improvements that equal the value of that mitigation, or they can pay the money in lieu of improvements. BVA has, up until recently, has had a desire to do improvements in that area, which would contribute to the transportation system. But more recently, it sounds like what they are opting to do is they're gonna just cut a check and be done with that. So we're in those discussions now, and now that, some of their major buildings are coming online, we wanna get that wrapped up to address those concerns.
Exactly.
Does that answer your question?
It gives me an update for sure.
Okay.
I certainly wanna see it come to a close too, so
Yeah.
that's why I keep asking. So thank you for the update.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Moore?
Chairman, I would like to say, thank you to the late Governor Phil Batt, longtime Canyon County resident, and, a very, hardworking person in the community. Grew up knowing them and that family, so, I think that's, a loss that, I hate to see.
Yeah. Very good. On that note, do we have a, motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Warwick, a second by Mr. Doty. Would the secretary call the roll? Let's do it that way.
Oh. Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yeah.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Ogden?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yep.
Commissioner Porter?